Maybe we'll get him on.
انزل نركبت
No, but I like how, like, he's... He go next, because... I think the most interesting story is like... Oh, yeah, so it's... Hi, Mr.
So who are you talking
to? Thank you so much for your time.
Yes.
South Africa has recorded a second case of the coronavirus. Just a reaction to it.
Well, this is the second one from the same cohort, from the same people who traveled to Italy and came back together. So in some ways it was expected that having traveled together to Italy, they would have contracted it. So there's no reason to panic. The Department of Health is handling this extremely well. The minister reported to me immediately, and I think the containment, the isolation of the people does show that we are handling it as well as we could. And I think if we carry on this way, we will be able to contain it. But the other important thing, of course, is that all of us as South Africans must now be on high alert on things such as continuously washing our hands, because they say that it is spread in that way. So washing our hands, and if you cough, you should cough with a handkerchief or a tissue and dispose of it immediately. So if we can contain the disease in that way, I think we will go a long way.
Is it too early to call for a travel ban? What does the Minister of Tourism say?
Well, I think it is still too early. We've just got two from the same source. So let us keep watching how this thing carries on. The government will keep our people informed at all times. We did say that we will be transparent. We will let people know. The important thing here is to avoid fake news, spreading of false information. We need to be very careful in the way that we communicate about this matter. We must be responsible because we are dealing with a matter that can cause a lot of panic in society, and we don't want to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
To the stage as we prepare to start our program for the day. Ayeye, mayanga yanga, ayeye. I understand, but we are disciplined.
League. Sizobekezela as we stand up to officially start our program with the national anthem. We will request Comrade Undithini Mbali to lead us. Comrades, please can we stand and give respect to the national anthem. We will request abantu besilisa who are wearing hats or caps to take them off. This is what unites us as the nation in our diversity. Mayanga, we will give you time to please quickly stand up. We are about to start the singing of the national anthem. Amandla. Awethu. Comrades, Comrade President, Comrade SG, one gets excited at such talent that South Africa has. We have a young woman right here who has led us in the singing of the national anthem. Thank you very much, Comrade Nditini. We are proud of you as the Young Women's Desk of the African National Congress Women's League. Eita mayanga yanga eita. Viva the undying spirit of Mama Charlotte Maxeke, viva! Viva! Viva the undying spirit of Mama Madekuma, viva! Viva! Viva the undying spirit of Mama Aida Mtwana, viva! Viva! Viva the undying spirit of Mama Lilian Goi, viva! Viva! Viva the undying spirit of Comrade Bavelile Hlongwa, viva! Viva! Thank you very much, Comrades, President Mongameli, Siyakwamkela, Siyamayanga of the Young Women's Desk. We are excited, Comrade President, that we are doing things differently. We are not sitting in a community hall somewhere. We are not sitting in a classroom somewhere, but we are sitting in a setup that we are not usually used to as young women. And we guarantee that today, as much as we are here to impart a lot of knowledge amongst each other, but we are here to also learn. We are excited that this environment will be giving us a lot of inspiration, because the lineup that we are having of young women who will be speaking on our behalf, Comrade President, is really full of knowledge, and we guarantee that we'll truly be inspired. Mayanga, sanbonan mayanga. Is Gauteng here? Anisa, is Gauteng here? Is Limpopo here? Limpopo is still on the way. Is Limpopo here? Okay, Limpopo is here. Is Northwest here? Is Northern Cape here? Okay, because today we are having a picnic set up, let us allow ourselves to have a sociable greeting. Can we agree? Do we agree, Comrade President? Comrade Mayanga, we request that you turn to the person who's next to you and say hello. This is because we don't have strangers here. We are having friends that are yet to meet. Siyavuma. Okay. Today, Young Women is a day that is dedicated to us to have a conversation with the President of the Republic of South Africa, the President of the African National Congress. So we are here to listen to the President, but we are here to also say to the President, as Young Women President, we have arrived and we want to be part of the solutions that are here to bring a difference to the life of women, but young women in particular, to bring an end to gender-based violence in this country, because we are saying, President, kwanele, sibulewe as young women, sibulewe as women, and we want to be part of the solution. Comrades, we welcome our special guests that are here. They will be speaking on behalf of us as young women. We've got young women from the different sectors. We've got young women from the sectors, business sector. We've got young women students. We've got young women in the public sector. We've got young farmers. We've got young artists. We entrust our knowledge, comrades. We entrust everything in terms of the challenges that we are facing as young women. But equally so, we are hoping that the young women that are here will represent us well and bring solutions to some of the problems that we are facing as young women. So can we give the young women that are here and will be speaking on behalf of us as young women a warm round of applause. Without further ado, comrades, we will request Comrade Ukarabo Mohale to come forward and introduce the special guest that we are having here, and all the young women that are here coming from different provinces, so that we know ukuthi obana bakhona lapha bazokwenzani baqhamuka kuphi. Comrade Karabo, please come up to the stage. Amandla! Amandla! Awethu! Ayaroka! Ayaroka! Thank you very much, Program Director. Comrade President, these are the young women that volunteered their time and selflessness to the organization. These are young women who go house to house, bumper to bumper, taxi rank to taxi rank, mobilizing young women and young men in society to support the African National Congress, its ideals and its principles. We have a booklet here, President, that has got all our speakers and their resumes. We have compiled it for you that should you want a minister, should you want a deputy minister, you must not go far, President. Open the booklet and you will see the quality that the African National Congress produces in society. We have one of the youngest PhD holders in Africa, Dr. Musa, who's here. She graduated at the age of 23 with a PhD in industrial psychology. These are the type of young women we have amongst our midst, who have dedicated their time, dedicated all their skills and expertise to the growth and development of young women in the country. We would want to welcome you, President. We feel very honored. It's not every day that a president of an entire country can leave his busy schedule to come and interact with young women. We really do appreciate you. We see you, President. And Pambili with President Cyril Ramaphosa, Pambili. Pambili with President Cyril Ramaphosa, Pambili. To the leadership of the ANC Women's League, as led by Queen Yanga. We call her Queen Yanga because she's our mother as young women. Uribita Mayanga Yanga because we're still young, we're fresh. Piano, so that's why she calls us Mayanga Yanga. We want to thank you, Comrade SG, for the undying support that you have continuously given us together with your NEC. Many people have reduced the young women's desk to tea girls, to people who hold umbrellas. But today we are here to say to society, we are not just tea girls. We are professionals, we are doctors, we are farmers. We are everything that we want to be, and people must stop undermining young women. To the leadership of the ANC NYTT, as led by Comrade Basani, and the collective, we want to thank you and acknowledge your presence. The president of the Youth League, Comrade Basani, must not look far. It's somewhere here. You must interact with these young women. These are young women that must lead the organization in future. We are saying to both the president of the ANC and of the country, we want to be radical and we want to take advantage of the moment that we have. That if we are serious about the future and the growth of the organization, there is no reason why young women who are sitting here cannot lead in the top 6 of the ANC come the next Congress. We are saying the same thing to you, Secretary General, that in the officials of the Women's League, there's a young woman here that must come, and we'll see really that you are committed. You are really committed to the future of young women in this country. We have various ministers here, MECs, leaders of the organization in all areas. We're not going to name them, comrades. There are many. The ANC does not only lead itself, it leads society. But with my parting shot, President, We're also going to acknowledge young women. The convener is going to come here to acknowledge young women. We want to continuously raise the point that we raise each and every day, that we see your efforts to fight gender-based violence. But we're saying, as you are busy coalescing in the fight against gender-based violence, you must know that the fight against women's bodies as well is also being propelled. Just last week, we were attending a case of a young woman who was raped. Police officers, President, who are reporting to you as the #1 of this country, police officers who are charged with the responsibility to protect young women, said to the young woman she must withdraw the case because it is not going to go anywhere. And we are bringing this to your attention that this is the reality of every young woman in South Africa. You must be able to help us to protect the rights of women, to protect the rights of children in society. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you very much for honoring us. Uridirile batho. Amandla! Amandla! Phakama yanga yanga phakama. Phakama yanga yanga phakama. Now is the time. Phakama yanga yanga. Thank you very much, Comrade Karabo. I think you have put it well. SG, you mustn't be surprised. We are here as young women. We have arrived, and clearly we are unapologetic. Comrades, let us welcome on stage the National Convener of the African National Congress Young Women's Desk, Comrade Precious, to come and do the recognition of young women movers. Comrade Precious, while she's coming on stage. Senzenina, 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 Malibongwe igama lamakosikazi aya roka ama yanga yanga. Thank you, Program Director. President, the song that has been sung now has become our anthem when we go to courts to stand with the victims of abuse, when we go to funeral houses to bury young women that have been killed in the hands of men, when we have visited those that have survived abuse. The young women we want to recognize here, President, are young women that have suffered in the hands of men, but have decided to use their own experience, their own pain and sorrow to reach out to others, to touch the lives of other women like them. They are young women that are drawn from our own ranks, activists of the Young Women's Desk, that beyond their activism, they have decided to do community work. We are giving them an award that we call with the name of our departed activist and leader of the Young Women's Desk, who influenced the grassroots approach of the Young Women's Desk, who believe that we must not be detached from our people, we must be on the ground where the young women are. And that's the kind of activist life that young women live in the ANC Women's League. So the award, we call it the ANC Women's League Young Women's Desk Vavelile Hlongwa Award for outstanding community work. That beyond being members of the Young Women's Desk and the ANC Women's League, we are members of the community and we must do community work. We are going to call Comrade Dikarabo Kutswani, receiving the ANC Women's League Young Women's Desk Vavelile Hlongwa Award for outstanding community work, for her outstanding work in HIV/AIDS advocacy, through her activist work as an HIV-positive young woman. She teaches communities about positive living and safer practices. She also highlights the plight of young women living with HIV. Comrade Dikarabo, you remain an activist of the Young Women's Desk, but we value the work that you do with your foundation, speaking on the life of young women living with HIV/AIDS. So we award you this certificate to thank you for the great work that you are doing. We are going to ask you to shake hands with the SG and the President and the NEC members. That's Comrade Dikarabo from the University of Pretoria. The second award goes to Buitumelo Tahe for her outstanding work as a children's rights activist. Through her foundation called Second Chance, she runs campaigns for rehabilitation of street children and fighting for their dignity. She also visits schools to provide mentorship and support to learners. Comrade Buitumelo, the Young Women's Desk remains proud, and we hope other activists are going to go to the community and make a difference where it matters the most. Please greet the leadership. The third award goes to Lorraine Koza, who's a survivor of rape, for her outstanding work in empowering young women and fighting against alcohol abuse through her foundation, the Lorraine Koza Foundation. She also provides support to rape victims and survivors. Comrade Lorraine, the Young Women's Desk is proud of you, and we congratulate you for your great work. The last award, comrades, goes to Advocate Sandra Necrosha, a lawyer, an activist in the law fraternity who fights for young women that are facing or are reporting men that have violated them. We award Advocate Sandra Necrosha for her outstanding work in offering her legal services to vulnerable women pro bono in cases of violence and abuse against women, and for being an activist lawyer. Her recent case, President, is in Leboa, where a young woman, a 20-year-old young woman, has been allegedly raped by a comrade and a member of the ANC. And because of that, our comrades are standing up in arms against the victim that has reported the case, claiming political conspiracy and all that. Advocate has been on the side of this young woman who's today hiding in a place of safety, and she has provided the necessary support. The case is still ongoing, and we are going to be in the Lewako Magistrate Court on the 8th of April. It's part of the work that Advocate you do with your profession. Apart from making a living, you have decided to use it to fight for other young women like you. The Young Women's Desk appreciates the great work that you are doing, and we thank you for your great work. not only the only young women that do a lot of work. We have a lot in our ranks, and we wanted to highlight the 4 just to show everyone that when you are in your communities doing the work as activists of the Young Women's Desk, we really see you, and we know that you lift the banner of the ANC Women's League and the ANC, and we hope that, comrades, you are going to continue. We are a movement of young women fighting, asserting ourselves, negotiating our existence in society. We must never give up, but soldier on. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Malibowe Kamala Makosikazi Wathinta imbokodo Wathinta abafazi. First citizen of the country, President, Secretary General, the engine of women of South Africa, convener of the Young Women's Desk, Comrade Precious Banda, and all protocol observed. For today, I'll be your co-program director. We gather at a time as a woman that our unity is of paramount importance. We gather at the time where a woman's life it's not regarded important. We gather at the time in society where as young girls who are taught do not get raped instead of teaching boys do not rape. We are gathered at a time in society where the life of a woman matters no more. And by that saying that, mine will be short for the day. I've just been tasked with introducing our speakers. And our first speaker, it's UCC, because I'm very young, I'm a 2000. UCC, UCC Naomi Mazwai. She's an economist, and she'll be talking about the role that women have to play in our transformation of the economy and empowerment of women. Thank you. Amanda! Go to comrades, my name is Nomsama Zwai. I'm the general manager of the Soweto Theatre, and at the Soweto Theatre we use the arts to foster social cohesion. We use theatre as a tool to contribute to the teaching and learning experience. We also use the arts to create economic opportunities for artists, creatives, and the local community. Now, when I started working at the Soweto Theatre in 2016, I moved to Soweto because many of us, if you know, when you're working in community development, you have to be on the ground. Aisha, my comrade. You have to be there to understand what is the situation on the ground. Comrade President, we are not safe. We are not safe. Something as simple as walking. As women, we are unable to walk. So I have an organization in Soweto, it's called Funkit I'm Walking, and we promote walking. The purpose of the organization is to ensure that any woman can walk at any time of day in any condition. The power of walking, comrades. If we had the ability to walk, and I'm not talking walking out of necessity, I'm talking about walking out of leisure, that we can walk. If we could walk, President, this would actually enhance your investment in the township economy, because a local rand is a walking rand. A walking rand is a local currency. The minute people get into cars, your local service providers, your local township businesses are now competing with Sandton and Eastgate and Southgate and all the other malls. But if we were able to walk, our local economy would benefit. The other benefits of walking, my comrade, if we could walk in our communities, in our townships, and it was nice to walk, we are now improving the quality of life in the townships. And an improved quality of life will have a positive impact on our property prices. And this is property that we own, Comrade President. So what am I asking for? As a young woman, as a young South African contributing to change in this country, contributing to transformation, what I need you to do, Mr. President, is to do your job excellently. What does that mean? Administration in this country is a problem. People are going to the office, but they are not going to work. And that is the problem we are facing. We are facing policemen and policewomen who are going to police stations, but they are not doing police work. We are faced with people that are going to government departments. They're sitting behind fencing computers, but they are not busy with the work of delivery. We need you to manage the public service and ensure that administration is done correctly. How are you going to do this, Comrade President? Performance management and training. Report on performance management and training. Tell us, how are departments, how are municipalities performing? What have they achieved? Set targets. People must have targets, they must deliver on targets, and we must know how are they delivering. It can only be done through good administration of the public service. As politicians, everybody is saying the right things, but on the ground, we are not feeling the delivery, we are not feeling the change. Funk it, I'm walking, my president. Let's walk to freedom. Amanda! Go to Amanda! Away to?
With that brief said, I think we must understand the importance of working. And Ulady said it improves your life, it improves the economy, and as a township, we are able to rise strongly as local rent against your sentence. As much as we see that we are living in a class-divided society where you found rats in Alice being fatter than people in Alexandra, as I would state that, can we have our second speaker? It's 3 minutes just to emphasize with my speakers, please. Usisi Nkenzani Nkosi, and she will be talking to us about the role of the creative economy in inspiring the nation. Thank you.
Sanbonani Nonke, Honorable President, esteemed members of the ANC Women's League, Amayanga, all protocol observed. I consider it a great honor to be invited to represent my sector here today. Thank you to the Young Women's Desk. So like many of us, I grew up in Soweto during the state of emergency, where there were armored vehicles, mellow yellows patrolling the streets. Together with the black consciousness mindset of my parents and this socio-political environment, it fostered a desire in me to get to know who we are as a people. So I read fervently about our leaders, intrigued by heroines such as Lillian Ngoyi, Charlotte Maxeke, Fatima Mia, Albertina Sisulu, and Winnie Mandela. Women were expected not to concern themselves with matters outside of the home. So I marveled at how, at the growth of the migrant labor system, these women were forcefully and successfully challenging the oppressive system. So all that agitation was a catalyst. It was inspiration that galvanized people into action, setting the scene for South Africa today. It was whilst I was traveling through the continent as the host of Face of Africa that I saw a gap in the market. Post-1994, we were negotiating a new identity as South Africans. So I was inspired to create a fashion movement that would articulate or represent what it means to be African in the 21st century. And every shard of anger that I had ever felt at the system inspired me, and Stone Cherry was born. It was a celebration of South African women of the liberation movement who had risen above all odds in pursuit of freedom. Honorable President, I've learned that agitation can turn into inspiration, and that inspiration propels a person from apathy to possibility and changes the way that we view our capabilities. And I believe it can do the same for us as a nation and our economy, and change us from being cynical, apathetic, and drowning in our troubles. Women in all sectors of the economy face massive challenges. Challenges of femicide, rape, misogyny, gender-based violence. Our youth are becoming a hedonistic society with no vision for the future, no hope, nothing to live for. With a systematic degradation of morality, the future is spiraling into a deep, dark abyss. Inspiration and hope are critical in changing the course of our society. And I believe that the creative economy must be allowed to craft creative solutions to some of these problems. So when I was in high school, I was invited to participate in a program called EduTrain. It was a fantastic program that took children from different backgrounds and sent us across the country. Some of the children, the white children in particular, had never seen poverty. It built empathy and social cohesion as we fought every night. We are asking for your support to start initiatives such as these. Our society needs to transform, and it won't happen on its own. So we need resources to embark on these triumphant national campaigns and programs like this one that ignite our passion. We need street parades, national inspiration drives, and social movements that move us out of apathy into action and use the power of creativity to inspire South Africans and bring back hope. We need to nurture the vulnerable girl child and arm her with inspiration, fostering a culture of support amongst women and creating networks of trust as demonstrated during the Women's March of 1956. Honorable President, we call on you to support us as women in the creative economy to build a vision board for this great country so we can inspire our youth and give them hope. Thank you.
Can you have the third speaker, Usis Namagina Chonchi? She was speaking about women in the law and forensic investigations.
Molweni. Mr. President, it is such an honor, the Women's League, it is such an honor to be here today. I've got a bit of a diverse history in terms of my experience. I started off as an economist, an IT developer, and later moved on to the forensic space. Currently, I run a law firm with a focus in forensic investigations. Mr. President, I've got over 20 years experience in the space, but here in South Africa, and I've worked abroad. However, I've seen that largely that space is closed off to women. I don't know if it's by design or by lack of opportunity. And in my thinking about what to say today, it's to say how can government assist? There are a lot of young women here pursuing different studies, and maybe they don't know about forensic investigations, which includes the eradication of fraud and corruption, which I believe, Mr. President, is one of your focus areas. So part of the challenges is that as running a business, as a new business, which I started it in 2016, it's difficult to get in, whether in the private sector or in the public sector, because you don't have experience. So a lot of work we do, or I do as a subcontractor. So I think, Mr. President, there needs to be a way, whether it's in the boards of some of our state-owned enterprises, of creating a space for women developing in different areas, in whether it's in the legal, in the audit, some of these professions, to say, let's bring in some young women to shadow the board members, the audit and risk committees, so that women can be more empowered to know that let's claim the space, let's all be in the playing. Lastly, Mr. President, I saw the award relating to the rapes and all of that. Our criminal justice system, I think maybe the minister there needs to take note. We need some automation. I've dealt with a lot of criminal cases in my profession. The losing of dockets and all of that can be automated, and I think there can be more time to speak about how we help in doing that. Thank you.
And our next speaker will be Rendani, the president of Recreative and representing the structures that exist for creative opportunities for South Africans.
Timasiari, Bovuani, Nanendovoa. Thank you so much to the ANC Women's League for this invitation and this platform. And Mr. President, I hope that from one president to another, this conversation will go further than this, and we will start to see real results. My name is Rendani Namakavani, and I'm also known as President Honey. I work as a multifaceted creative who is concerned with the positive representation of South African blackness as well as education. I'll be opening my address with an abstract from President Honey's manifesto. To live in a country where you have to break bread and are bent low in the sun while others bask is not Francina's dream. The land gives but cannot receive because your hands are the only thing you own. Your heart wants to love with cause, but all it learns is that survival is harsh, not while the honey is here. I am the hell and the high water, and the hope for a country betrayed by its past. The honey is here. This manifesto was written by a team of women whose purpose is to create a language and spaces that propel artists and all-around creators in this country to see themselves and their work as important. It is vital that the people who get to work with us comprehend that we don't just draw pretty pictures, write quirky taglines, write beautiful poetry that serenades you. We're not the icing on the cake. We are the reason that a big part of humanity is able to work and function in the way that it does. We are the equivalent of mathematicians, engineers, scientists, and everyone who is regarded as worthy of receiving bursaries, scholarships, fellowships, and funding that is supported by our government. The education system has failed us. As someone who has worked as a lecturer, as well as has been a student, I know that neither sides of the bread are buttered. The syllabus needs to catch up with what is currently happening in the various creative sectors. Let's work and have at least creative people having to have 2 jobs to sustain their lives. A 9-to-5 and a side hustle. Why has the government not assigned a minister who has a creative experience? One who knows and collaborates with our top and emerging creatives to solve some of our problems. We are celebrated and invested in more by international institutions. We need our funding to come from you, Mr. President. We need a Department of Arts, Culture, Design, and Technology, one that exists to service these very facets. Why are we merged with sports and recreation? Mr. President, once again, from one president to another, let's start making creativity important, starting at the foundation phase. Arts and culture, it's a cool subject, but it really does nothing for us. Creativity needs to start being normalized as a means to make sustainable income. We have to convince our parents over and over again that we're not just drawing pretty pictures, we're not just making adverts, we're not just making music for people to dance in the clubs. We're coming up with legit solutions. Mr. President, in closing, I would like to leave you with this. The government needs to collaborate with people such as myself to come up with and implement solutions that will help our country move forward at a better rate. Thank you.
With that being said, can we have Precious Princess Sebanda, an unemployed graduate that will be talking about the life that unemployed graduates face in our society. Should I help? Is it fine there? take it out.
Can I face this side? Firstly, I'd like to appreciate the opportunity that I was given by the ANC Women's League and Social Development to be here. I'm very excited, and I'm very to see you, Ms. Maite Machaban, because you are the person I need to talk to. Sorry, Mr. President. I am a graduate, yes, but I'm a student again, because the workplace did not accept me. I remember growing up, you see, we listen to a lot of things that elders tell us, and I remember this other mama said to me, you know, you don't have to worry about getting a job. You'll probably get a rich husband who's going to take care of you. And looking at the country, the times that we're living in now, men are abusing women. And I can't be dependent on men. I can't depend on someone to take care of me for life. Because growing up, I was always taken care of. I need to take care of myself. And they said 3 minutes, right? We're tired of learnerships. We are tired of we are tired of being told what is limited to us. I am tired of worrying about getting into a taxi, worrying about the interview that I'm going to, worrying about if the building is accessible, and also worrying if the employer is going to accept me. Because people don't look at me as a person. They don't look at my skills, my qualifications, or anything. They look at the physical, what they see. They've already limited us. What I need is for us to be accepted in society. We are always told that our South Africa is inclusive. It's not. It is definitely not inclusive. They try to, but they limit us. And I'm glad you are here as our representative, and you are hearing me right now. Let's create a South Africa that is inclusive for all. Not just all women, not just all people of the LGBTQI plus community, but also of persons with disabilities. Doesn't matter the type of disability that we have, but we want to be a part of this country too. Because why? We are citizens. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
And well, with that being mouthfully said, we'll have our sixth speaker, which is Makoto Maiko, a neuropsychologist sustaining women empowerment in South Africa.
I apologize. Apologies for the slide glitch. I would like to begin by acknowledging the presence of the President of the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, the leader of the ANC Women's League, Mama Dlamini, the rest of the Women's League, the Women's League desk, our ministers and MECs. Of course, as always, protocol is observed. Although today is a fundraising event, it is also the eve of International Women's Day, a day that celebrates the unprecedented advances in women empowerment around the world. However, even in the light of celebration and exuberance, one should ask, what is South Africa's psychological preparedness for the empowerment of women? To what extent are we psychologically prepared to annihilate the regressive patriarchy in South Africa, Mr. President? See, the legislative frameworks are there. We have the Women Empowerment Gender Equality Bill and phenomenal work done by the Women's League to ensure that women are the forerunners of gender-based transformative change. But where are we socially and psychologically? Everybody seems to be doing everything necessary to ensure that we do forge inclusive growth in the workplace. But ironically, Mr. President, we are still topping the charts globally in our crimes against women. I mean, if paradox was a person, it would be South Africa. As we celebrate women today under the theme social and economic empowerment of young women, I would like to take on a slightly different vertical. I'd like to talk about how we as South Africa can sustain the derived benefit of employing and empowering young South African women without yielding diminishing returns. For those who are a bit fussy about my accent, I have spent most of my time in West Africa and the UK, and it's allowed me an opportunity to study and observe social systems that wouldn't quite work in the African context. I stumbled across a few things to bear in mind in terms of our social and our economic verticals, and hope that I will address them in a manner that is quantitatively measurable, impactful, and sustainable. Mr. President, our approach must begin by supporting existing legislature with a strong socially and psychologically strong cohesive bonding glue. South Africa needs the bonding glue. Our first starting point to sustaining empowerment of women begins with providing African solutions to African problems, Mr. President. The colonial remnants of decision-making are no longer an excuse. Africa's time is now. Say it with me. Africa's time is now. African solutions must be predicated on a Pan-African narrative. And although I'm a passionate advocate for global citizenship, we must be strategic in how we adopt global systems. Not all global systems speak to the African, Mr. President. Women empowerment of the United Kingdom will not speak to Lerato, who lives in Diepsloot and has to make a decision between pitting extra hours in a Sandton office versus her coming back home to Diepsloot in the dark and in the slums and being attacked and murdered and placed in a body bag. The decision is real. It's a life or death decision. Do I become a CEO or do I get zipped in a body bag? So context, Mr. President, is everything. South Africa, these are real issues, and if we don't answer these issues, we will hop onto the global bandwagon of global empowerment without really having measurable impact. Mr. President, solution number 2 is to address the crisis of masculinity. Our number one stumbling block that causes diminishing returns and really erodes empowerment is a crisis of masculinity in South Africa. Mr. President, it is deplorable. And it really doesn't matter what bill is being passed if we don't get down to the psychological nitty-gritties of gender-based violence. Mr. President, the solution starts with having a conversation with the boy child. I'm part of an organization, Mr. President, called the TMF Foundation that addresses the boy child through an initiative called the Boy Without Identity. The initiative molds the boy child, teaches them adaptive outlets of expressing their masculinity. Third on the agenda, Mr. President, and I'm very sorry to take your time, but I do believe that a progressive society begins with a healthy woman. Women are the economic drivers of society. If we are to sustain their proclivity to increase GDP growth in the country, we must ensure that they're given optimal health care. South Africa currently struggles with a high premature mortality rate. And unless urgent action is taken, breast cancer, which is one of our leading causes of death, will compound South Africa's disease burden, increase poverty, and gender inequality. I guess my time is up, but I'm kindly asking for 30 seconds just to acknowledge the other women who are here. Apologies, Mr. President, and everybody else. Mr. President, I ask that you partner with our farmer, Unomcimelo, as she champions the agricultural field. These are women, Mr. President, who are in our pamphlet. I ask that you partner with Hazel in small business to ensure that women start small businesses and catalyze entrepreneurial innovation. I ask that you partner with Rendani in the creative field, who has just spoken to us, as she unapologetically documents the narrative of the South African women through awareness and educational content. Mr. President, I ask that you partner with UNOMSA, as she identifies, predicts, and addresses the economic variables that confound the woman's ability to champion economic growth. Partner with Dr. Musawenkosi, our industrial psychologist who graduated at the age of 23. Partner with her, President, as we bridge the gap between the university curriculum content and employment market needs. This will hopefully, Mr. President, lead to Princess, he was here, our one employed disabled graduate, who will today hopefully be employed in the employment market. Mr. President, partner with Dr. Hofiwa in healthcare, because healthcare of women leads to the empowerment of women. Partner with Yanko, our engineer, who will pave the way and bridge the gender disparity in the engineering department. Partner with Sandra to offer victims gender-based violence support and give them a voice. Lastly, Mr. President, partner with myself, a neuropsychologist, as I try heal the nation and assist you in creating a better South Africa. Thank you for your time.
Amandla, Awetu, comrades, can you not forget that the desk is guided by discipline? So can you please be disciplined and respect the speaker on the podium? Our next speaker will be, it's going to be Dr. Please forgive me on the pronunciation, Dr. Rafina Rachidzele, challenges facing young girls in the health sector and society. Tintimfazi. My name is Ropo Arasbechere, by the way. First of all, I'd like to greet our Honorable President, President Matamela Ramaphosa. I'd like to greet Mama Yanga Yanga, our SG. I'd like to greet our National Convener, Mrs. Precious Banda, who has believed in me. I'd like to greet our... Sorry. Let me just slow down. I'd like to greet our Gauteng convener of the ANC Young Women's Desk, Ms. Bunki, and everyone else that's here. I'd like to greet you, Amayanga Yanga. I'll start this by saying that we believe her because I am her. I am someone who was molested by a family member, sodomized by a church member, gang raped by 3 men. I will also want to just employ the media to change the narrative. Remove the label of victim or survivor. I should not be identified by it. I am a doctor, I am charismatic, I am well-spoken, I am strong, I am smart, I am everything I want to be. Stop it. Power is stripped naked from one when that happens. Counseling services should be mandatory, Mr. President, immediately. The average rape survivor in South Africa waits 3 months before they are counseled. 3 months. The conversation centers around making women's rights a human right, which it is. The status quo, by definition, deems the situation women find themselves in a crime against humanity, which it is. We are at war. We demand a plan that addresses it in a multi-sectoral approach. It takes a village to raise a child, Mr. President. Start with the resocialization of boys. We demand consent curriculum in the life orientation program. It's time we teach boys that no is no. Teach girls to speak even when they are not spoken to, and teach men that they have no right to not believe them. I've seen more teenage pregnancies than I can count. It is not in the delivering of babies in which I failed to do my job, but my failure is rooted in the truth that their boyfriends are rapists. They are sugar daddies. There are men in cars. There are men who can afford to buy them nice clothes. Statutory rape is normalized. Society condemns teen pregnancy and teen mothers as a way to band-aid the actual crisis. In practice, in my practice, we are taught to remove the source of infection. We demand for pedophiles to be removed. If we can notify diseases in this country, we can notify teenage pregnancies and their rapists. At birth, we demand police presence. At birth, we demand social workers. In the hospital in which I work at two, at the military and at Gauteng, we have 2 social workers and a lot of unemployed social workers, Mr. President. We demand a psychologist to be present. We demand that the stigma that the girl child has to deal with be recognized. Delivery is abuse in itself. It's physical abuse. An abused girl deals with an underdeveloped birth canal. More likely than not, we perform an episiotomy, in which we cut the entrance so that the child can be delivered. We risk things like shoulder dystocia, where the head of the child comes out but the body cannot. These children are suffocated. We deal with things like birth asphyxia. Now teenage mothers has to be part and parcel and deal with children who are now disabled. What happens to the future of these girls? Where are the boys? Teen pregnancy is a high-risk pregnancy automatically. Children now are part and parcel and privy to develop things like hypertension. Hypertension in pregnancy can lead to preeclampsia. Preeclampsia can lead to eclampsia. Eclampsia can lead to strokes and death. I've been clinically depressed. I've attempted suicide 7 times, and I'm a doctor. Mental illness, whether acute or chronic, should be recognized as well as a physical illness. I am tired of the stigma. I work in a public hospital. The facilities in which we place mental health care users look like jail. We demand better conditions. We demand people with mental illnesses to be treated better, not just by our doctors, but by our securities. The way in which we handle patients we call a 5-point immobilization, where you hold the patient by the head, another person holds the arm, another person holds another arm, another person holds the leg, another person holds another leg, as if this person has to be sacrificed for some sort of sin. This person is not Jesus Christ, this person is a human being. We ask that they triage patients. We ask that you remove acutely psychotic patients from depressed patients, because these patients are also at risk of being hurt. The agenda is the right to dignity, Mr. President. People who have dealt with mental health issues may be different, but they are not deficient. I certainly am not. Thank you.
We're very educated in the desk. We're very educated. Can I have my 8th speaker, which is Yanko Banda, that will be deliberating on socio-economic empowerment in engineers' perspective. If we deal desk, Macom, desk is very educated.
Good day. I greet you all. I'll observe all protocols. I won't go into everybody's portfolios. My name is Yanko Banda, and I'm a practicing civil engineer in the transportation space. And I've been tasked with giving a talk towards social economic empowerment for young women now or never. So when the words social economic empowerment are mentioned, what does it mean to me? What does it mean to you? What does it mean to all of us here as young women in the Republic of South Africa? To me, social economic empowerment is the process of developing a sense of autonomy and self-confidence to act individually or collectively to change the social relationships and the institutions that exclude the disadvantaged people in our communities. Basically, we are given the power to do something. A lot of literature has shown evidence that sustainable development goals will not be reached without the acceleration of female empowerment. Therefore, the emancipation and giving authority to young women is critical for the development, enhancement, and sustainability of the economy. And we as women sitting here today need to know and believe that our voices can change the world. As a young black female engineer, I would be lying if I say the engineering profession has not made strides in the last few years to bridge various gaps, such as those of gender, race, and age. However, the profession is not regulated or well represented. Women do not occupy a lot of senior positions. We still get overlooked because I want to start a family. Yes, my voluntary association, the Consulting Engineers of South Africa, has made strides to acknowledge young female engineers who are doing wonderful things in the profession. Hence, we've seen 4 females winning the Young Engineer of the Year title for 4 years in a row. However, I believe that we as young black women in our various spaces have the power to disrupt the status quo, and we shouldn't be afraid to use our voices. It is time that we as young women actively take our place at the table and not be on the menu. Engineers have the ability to assist with the effective rollout of various public infrastructure, such as infrastructure in the transportation space, the water infrastructure, energy infrastructure, and information infrastructure. Yes, the cost to implement this infrastructure might be high, but infrastructure is important and critical for a country's economic development and sustainability, especially when implemented correctly. We, as the engineers, are not empowered to do this, Mr. President. If you look in the Constitution, all professions are represented as Chapter 9 institutions, but the engineering profession is not there. Yet, a lot of the infrastructure is meant to be implemented by engineers. So how can we help to implement this infrastructure if we are not even considered as a profession? Mr. President and the leadership, I implore you to start the work needed to create such a space for the engineering profession. This space can be a conducive environment in the form of an office that will empower engineers such as myself to do more with the less at our disposal. I'm calling on you, Mr. President, that start the footwork now. And I'm saying to you and the leadership, Tumatina, sizojika izinto for the economy and the country as a whole. I thank you.
We also want to be sent, Mr. President. Also want to be sent. I will have my 9th speaker, Palomino Jama. Palo will be speaking on the LGBTI community, and she's also a member of South African Union of Students. Oh. Lelilizwe lela makosi kaze asoze sapela mandla lelilizwe lela makosi kaze asoze sapela mandla siyazikanya bobutabane bethu asoze sapela mandla siyazikanya bobutabane bethu asoze sapela mandla Excuse comrades, did not call a phone up 2 seconds. Asoze sapela mandla
Amandla. Awethu. Greetings to the President, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa. Greetings to our mother, Paly of the ANC Women's League, Program Director who holds the hopes and dreams of young people in this country, Comrade Fikile Masigo. In front of you today is Palomino Jama in an attempt to speak on behalf of the LGBTIA+ community. Festus Mogae, former president of Botswana, years 1998 to 2008, said at a BBC segment of The Big Debate in 2013 that he knew that anti-gay legislation in his country was wrong, but he was not willing to lose an election for speaking up for the gay community. Recently, when attending an event in Cape Town, I attempted to urge comrades who work in the president's office to encourage him to take a hard line against countries that spew hateful rhetoric and hateful legislation against the LGBTQIA+ community in Africa, especially since the president has assumed the chairship of the African Union. The response I received was that whenever this issue is raised, certain countries leave the room, thus I assume stopping the real business of the day. Very recently, I tuned in, like thousands of South Africans, to the SONA to hear what my president and leader of the party that I support and volunteer myself to will say about bettering my existence as a young, queer black woman living in South Africa. Not once was the acronym LGBTQIA+ mentioned in his State of the Nation address. The continuance of killing of queer community around the country was never condemned. Through the brave activism by the likes of Bev Ndinzi, Judge Edmund Cameron, and Comrade Simon Ngodi, the South African Constitution recognized sexual orientation, legalized gay marriage, and criminalized discrimination. As this generation, we are grateful for the work that has been done. We do not take anything for granted, but unfortunately, the realities of our everyday lives as queer people do not reflect the Constitution that you, Mr. President, and others worked so hard on. Today, the Constitution makes allowance for Home Affairs officials to refuse to marry a same-sex couple on the basis of their religious beliefs. Imagine if we would carry this principle out to doctors. Imagine if we were to allow doctors to legally refuse to give out medical care to people based on their personal views. Having the right to love who you love and having that recognized by the state speak to the dignifying of ourselves. This for us is a matter of life or death. This country's law allows people to change their gender if they do not identify with it, but because there is no real effort to ensure that trans people's dignity is of importance, the process can take up to 7 years, 7 long years of emotional and psychological abuse and homophobia. The disparities between our Constitution and the realities of our lives reminds me of a running joke on Twitter about bachelors who live in Midrand. They drive around in fancy cars, have really fancy looking apartments, but on the inside their apartments do not have a bed for them to sleep on. Their lives are all about the optics and everyone thinking that they've done well for themselves, but inside the apartments, the basics like a bed are not catered for. Speaking about the economic emancipation of queers is difficult because on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we are still battling with the mere basics of having our existence not being questioned. We are tired of talk shops. We are growing very impatient as queers. There will come a time where the pride parades of thousands of queers that happen around the country annually will be mobilized for protest action. We are here, we are queer, and singaisusa nanini na. Being a woman is like being black twice. Being queer is like being black 3 times. Despite the difficult lives we live, the queer community remains the most dynamic community. Last night, I was at an event called Vogue Nights, hosted by a creative named Lelo What's Good. It is in these moments where I feel most at home, surrounded by love and queer energies. It gives me hope that one day, my everyday life in South Africa may feel that easy. Today, Mr. President, I ask you to please furnish your Midrand apartment. I ask you to make an effort in ensuring that our Constitution protects us in practice. I ask you to not be like former President Festus of Botswana and value votes over the value of our lives. I ask you not to allow queer rights to be a by-the-way issue in South Africa, or anywhere in the continent specifically, but in the world in general. Let me close off with a quote from my personal icon, Simon Ngodi. And I quote, "I am black and I am gay. I cannot separate the two parts of me into secondary or primary struggles. In South Africa, I am oppressed because I'm a black man and I'm oppressed because I'm a gay man. So when I fight for freedom, I must fight against both oppressions. All those who believe in a democratic South Africa must fight against all oppression, all intolerance, and all injustice. Amandla!"
Asoze sapela mandla. Can we have our 10th speaker, Koza Mazibuko from the Congress of South African Students, who is also the founder of the Girl Child Foundation. Amanda! High moral?
High discipline.
High discipline?
High moral.
Honorable President, Madam Secretary, greetings to you all. As causes of, I just received an SMS that my aunt just passed away, so I'm a bit. As Congress of South African Students, Mr. President, we are very worried about our safety on school grounds. Mr. President, there's gangs reigning in our school grounds. There are teachers hitting children, and they just go ahead, and these cases are left unseen. They are left unheard. Mr. President, as Kozas, we are asking you to urge the Minister of Basic Education to do her work. Minister is nowhere to be found whenever there's a problem at schools. There was a case whereby a student killed another student, and she was silent in all this case, President. Mr. President, we have cases of teachers who are sleeping with girls at schools, promising them better marks, promising them that they'll be given scopes and whatever so that they may pass, and they get away with this. And this leads to the high rate of teenage pregnancies in our schools. And then we come and blame the girl child for engaging in sex at an early age, where else there's a man that went there and lured her into sleeping with him. President, we are asking for the betterment of infrastructure in our schools, especially in the townships and rural areas. There's a school in KZN, I'm just not sure in which village, Mr. President, where kids don't even have desks to write on. Mr. President, we as Congress of South African Students, we are asking that can we get better securities at schools? Can we be provided with better infrastructure at our schools? And can the cases that have been opened against teachers who sleep with children be followed up until justice is served? I'm sorry to cut this short, but I just can't because my emotions are all over the place, Mr. President. Thank you. Can we have our next speaker, Usisi Zagele Zwane, that will be representing the sex workers.
Ngibingelele uPresident ngeke ngiye kwihlalo eziningi engazazi kodwa ngiyanibingelela nonke ngibingelele ama sectors onke ngokuhlukahlukana kwawo ngibingelele ne sex workers sector ngithanda nokubonga to the Women's Youth Desk for inviting us to this event to say our voice as a sex workers sector. The sex workers sector, most of the time people, they become so surprised when we talk of sex workers as if it's a strange word, but we all know sex workers, what they're doing. So with the sex workers sector, we are recognized nationally. Our president knows us. It is not the first time to stand here. So I'm presenting all these NGOs that are under the sex workers sector. What I will say, sex workers sector, as we work, we follow the national strategic plan that is within our South Africa plan. It's not as if we are operating in our own world. Sex workers are being identified as the key population that is also contributing to the stats of the HIV in South Africa. So as we are down there, local level, we work with them directly. Sex workers, they have many challenges that they come across. Sex workers are being discriminated, stigmatized. Sex workers, they face daily challenge, especially ngamaphoyisa. And it becomes a problem for us because as South Africans, our law should be protected by them. But sex workers are being violated with their rights. The rights of sex workers are still the same rights of human rights, just like everybody. But then sex workers are being killed, they're being raped, and cases of sex workers are not reported. And to us, it becomes a surprise when the state is being counted to say, we have women who are being raped, women who are being killed, but none of the national team or wherever, where I can say they should be present there, we don't have anyone representing us, no one helping the sex workers except us on the local level. Sex workers is not being yet legalized, and we are here by saying today, can the president please intervene? We've been asking this for many, many years. If Niakonugus recognize are putting us in the key population statistics and putting us on local level to identify sex workers, why are you not recognizing sex workers as being legal? The same as LGBTIQ, it's been legalized with other things, same marriage sex. Why not sex workers that work not being recognized as work? Because they're working daily. And some people, they'll be surprised to say, sex workers, it's a sin what they're doing. It's a sin to see a woman wearing a mini skirt. But I'm surprised today, many of women here, we are all wearing mini skirts. And sex workers will be arrested for wearing a mini skirt. Police will arrest sex workers, charging them with a sin that they don't even they know. Some abanye babosha nje ukuthi sikuthole usebenza. Was the police there? Amboni sex work having sex with a client. Bangekho lapho. But what they will write in a charge paper that they are charging, they'll say sikuthole uvaluator lottering or whatsoever that they are saying, and there will be a problem when they're being arrested. Abavumela ukuthi ba exercise medication yabo, making a call. Which other South Africans are allowed to do that? What is it that sex workers, when it comes to amaphoyisa, that are not doing the same law that they should be doing? So we are saying today, President, please identify our work. The same as this identifier in the South African National AIDS Conference. Please also accommodate us somewhere. And we would really be happy if one day, maybe a young woman's desk will intervene and come and see our cases that we see them, that Lawa reporter Kona Manjela, and see them down there, what is happening with sex workers. Our sex workers are being violated in another way, and our cases are, even when they go to health facilities, you will find a problem there. Baba discriminator, they will not help them. Instead, they will be gossiping, saying, oh, you put them here. Everyone sitting in that clinic will be knowing a certain NGO working with sex workers bought this group of sex workers, which is not what we are promoting. Can you please, President, assist national level, going local level, especially with police, please, even if the minister can intervene on that one, we really appreciate, because we cannot work so hard and be counted under the states that we are contributing to HIV, yet we are not being given the rights just like everyone else. So if you can really help on that, we'd really appreciate. And please, the Young Women's Desk would be happy. Since we are here, you know that we do exist. Come and help us. There are many cases, and sometimes you don't even know how to approach them. Some cases are still pending. You don't even know what to do with them. But please, as you are part of the desk, and we are also faced with adolescent sex workers, young kids, and it's not by choice, but if you intervene more on that, you will find out the problem. So I think those are the attentions we are directing to the President. Please help us. You know, even that we've been raising this issue many times. We know that there are some challenges that there might come across in terms of making sex workers legal, but we really need to fight to be identified and to be addressed with respect. Thank you.
Can we have Advocate Sandra Necrosha that will be talking about law and women?
I would like to thank the program director. I would like to acknowledge Mr. President. I would like to acknowledge the ministers and the MECs that are here today. Oh, sorry. I would like to acknowledge the Women's League and the Women's Young Desk. Mr. President, by profession, I'm a legal practitioner, and yet in spaces that I'm supposed to be... Oh, sorry. I don't know. Can you hear me? All right. Mr. President, by profession, I'm a legal practitioner. I'm an advocate. In spaces where my voice is supposed to hurt, I am silenced by the boys' club, by patriarchy. Mr. President, the coronavirus has arrived in South Africa, and yet women fear being raped and being killed on the streets. Every 4 minutes, a woman is killed by an intimate partner or raped. The stats are scary, Mr. President. Mr. President, recently on the 17th of February 2020, I was called by Precious to assist in a rape case in Leboagomo. I could not sleep based on the contents of the video that I saw of the young girl. She felt powerless, she felt voiceless, and she said, if society ignores me because I am powerless, because I come from a village, I do not have the power. Her perpetrator, her alleged rapist, was a member of the ANC Youth League. He came to court wearing his ANC regalia. He was not embarrassed to sing the struggle songs of the ANC. His comrades came in arms and supported him, Mr. President, and they did not have no shame in calling us the women, the advocates who were there supporting the young girl, the ANC Women's League, the Women's Desk, names, Mr. President. Mr. President, the woman who is supposed to be assisting you in the reduction of rape, in providing rape victims with voices in court, are voiceless. Your legal practitioners who are advocates, who are attorneys, who are black females, are voiceless. Mr. President, I ask you to change the court system to enable the victim to be part of the process and not just to be a witness. A rape victim is only called to trial to support the case of the state prosecutor. She's not called in to put her story before the court. She's called in to be a witness, a victim and a survivor of rape. When her case is done, Mr. President, there is no support. There is no social worker to monitor a process. There is no one there to hear what she says. Mr. President, your police are being corrupted. The magistrates are being corrupted. If a police officer can tell a young girl at a bail application, forgive your perpetrator, he did no wrong. There is something wrong with the system, Mr. President. If I, as a female advocate in South Africa, still fear to walk down the streets despite my profession, I fear being raped on a daily basis, it means that, Mr. President, even your female leaders will never speak up against rape because we fear that it may come knocking on our doors. Mr. President, I'm bringing it to your door and I'm saying let's provide support to the victims of rape at the court process and outside court. Let us have social workers that are trained. Let us have police officers that are trained. Let us pay our prosecutors the right salary so that they're not tempted to be bribed. Let us call the relevant stakeholders, the medical doctors who assist these girls, open cases of rape. It does not require a police officer to walk hand in hand with the victim of rape to open a case. There are responsibilities that belong to stakeholders, and those stakeholders need to be accountable, need to take action, or we as the youth, Mr. President, will take action on their behalf. Thank you.
Before the next and the last speaker gets announced, can all of those that have received their issue of FAWU go back where they were sitting? Can you please move in that order? And I would therefore be humbled to to bring upon our next speaker and our last speaker, Dr. Musawenkosi Donia Sarumbe, which is an academic and the youngest PhD female holder in Africa.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Honorable President, SG, the leadership of the ANC, senior and youth as well. I acknowledge you all here today, all protocol observed. Now, I would like to concisely express a matter that I believe has a sense of urgency right now, especially as a young academic. We are faced with a situation where, especially as black women, we are not being allowed the respect and the space that we deserve in academic arenas. Now, you have, for instance, and I'm a supervisor of postgraduate study, and you find a supervisor who has a different array of students. However, often it happens so unfortunately that our black female students are being encumbered from progressing in their higher education studies, especially at postgraduate level. Now, last year sometime I came across an article, very disheartening, which was implying that we need to recalibrate and look into what it is exactly that is causing the rise in postgraduate output in terms of our degrees at master's and PhD level. Now, this for me was quite insulting because it implies that the more, especially black females, and I'm not even going to include the males right now, but they're also obviously implicated in this matter. But obviously, it really was disheartening for me to know that young black people's intelligence is being questioned, and yet we've done so much to prove ourselves and prove that we are worthy of the spaces that we're pervading. Now, I am an academic at an institution, obviously, that previously, unfortunately, had been dominated by the colonial period or era. Now, because of this, we find ourselves having to inhibit ourselves, even in terms of the research that you conduct. If you want to conduct something that is controversial to the former colonialists, it becomes an issue. Your research faces so much screening, and we are encumbered in terms of the research that we obviously postulate in our different fields. Now, I want to pose to you, Mr. President, that we need to start having more organic institutions, higher education institutions. One of them is the University of Mpumalanga, of which you are the Chancellor, Mr. President. We need those where our ideologies will be allowed to come to the fore, and we have no one to inhibit or interrogate us based on the research that we're bringing forward. And that is just what I want to express to you today, that we're ready to take up this space, and we want to also be acknowledged in these different spaces. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Mr. President, SG, before we have skipped a speaker. The people that grow us food, the ones that are responsible that we are eating today. And I call upon the chairperson of Centurion Community Development Project and Cooperative, Nomgqibelo Mkhize.
Thank you. I would like to greet you all. Thank you, Mr. President, for it's an honor to be in your presence today. My name is Nomgqibelo Mkhize from Centurion Community Development Project. We established our cooperative in 2014 with the aim to alleviate poverty. I'm standing here today representing the organization that is called the YAD, which is the Youth in Agriculture and Rural Development. As the world is moving into a healthy and lifestyle due to global change that has more effect on women, there are more concerned about their health, well-being, and what they eat. Most of the women are now responsible of their health, and they are daily changing their diets. So today you have woken up, each and every one of us, you have woken up and you have eaten a breakfast. Now you are eating your lunch and you are going to dinner. Have you ever wondered where does that food come from? Have you ever taken a moment to appreciate a farmer that has grown that food? I'm here representing the young women and the young farmers. Our aim is to develop and implement appropriate programs and policies and services for the understanding and the response of the young people in agriculture. We want to create a friendly environment to empower the agripreneurs. Those young farmers who are agripreneurs, we want to empower them as they are. We want to contribute towards the food security and job creation in South Africa. The Yard want to advocate for the young women, women's equality and participation in the representation of making of agriculture and rural development initiative. We have challenges as the young farmers. Our challenges is that as the scaling down of the government sponsors the agricultural services such as limiting assistance and business equipment. Instead, they are giving us more training and more training that doesn't come with financing our projects. That doesn't come with financing our projects, which will cause growth in the economy. As the technology is moving, as technology is moving, there is a non-available training done for the young women to be equipped about the new systems that are done so that we can be ahead with technology. As the same other years when we've been having shortages of rain, there are ways to harvest water from the systems that we are using for our vegetables, but it's not being put forward to the young people as they do not know. When there is drought, their crops, they die. The Yard is the NPO that was established by the GDAD, which is called the Youth and Agriculture and Rural Development. Thus today I'm standing here with your request on behalf of these young people, Mr. President, that can you allow us, as the GDAD doesn't allow us to excel and come together as young people. There is a limitation in the offices of GDAD. So we as the young people, we are requesting that today may you allow us to be part of what is happening in the economy. Allow us to function and share the skills of agriculture with each other without having the concern of what GDAD will be saying, what GDAD is limiting us to do and what to not do. And there are opportunities for young women opportunities for young women in agriculture, which there is a lot available financial support from certain government departments, which is those systems have been created that we must not be able to get through those finances because of the procurement that has been put there. There are formal markets available for young farmers, which are pick and pay your food lovers. But the young farmers, they do not know about those certificates, which are called the SA and the local gap certificate, which is the good agricultural practice. We request you, Mr. President, that may you make those certificates available to the farmers so that we may be able to go to those formal markets. As the commercialization of agriculture is one of the most important things affecting the agricultural development, which commercialization, the marketplace is more important and has more important role to play on the future of South Africa. And we are requesting that as we are moving into the fourth industrial revolution, may you make those programs available in the skills center, because most of the time our department take us to programs that do not have the future. It's like they're taking us into programs that have been there in the past. As technology is moving, we need to learn about things like hydroponics, things like aquaponics, to know how to fish both fish and vegetables at the same time and harvest water instead of wasting water. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mam Kize. Khabazela siyabonga kakhulu. We have not forgotten that, having said that, President Umhlaba as young women sisawudinga, so that we are able to successfully perform all that she has said. Thank you very much to the young women that have come forward and reminded us that indeed women are sources of power. Power to survive, power for resilience, and power to transform. We will then request our Chief Yanga to come forward. SG, young women have had it all. We have been well represented. We are now waiting for our president to speak to us. We will request SG of the African National Congress Women's League to come forward and introduce the president to us. Thank you very much.
Amandla, 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 Pagama, 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 Ramaphosa, Itesha, Itesha, Lisandele, Pagama, Pagama, Ramaphosa, Itesha, Itesha, Lisandele, unity, unity, Makabane, Itesha, Itesha, Lisandele, unity, unity, Makabane, Itesha, Itesha, Lisandele, Pagama, Pagama, Ramaphosa, Itesha, Itesha, Lisandele, Pagama, Pagama, Ramaphosa, Itesha, Itesha, Lisandele, Amandla, Amandla, my comrade, Harsondeling, Harsondeling, Arfukutens piti pit sondelani, my comrades. Pagama, 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 Ramaphosa, Itesha, Itesha, Lisandele, Pagama, Pagama, Ramaphosa, Itesha, Itesha, Lisandele. Comrades, young people, I nangas lidi batu baba lazy. Honestly, young people, ay man, ay, la reporter man, ay la reswabisa man, ay sondelani ma comrade, sondelani ma comrade. One, two, three. Amandla, 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 away to Amandla, Matla, Aruna. Comrades, katsiba who busy somewhere kamole modijong. But now is the time. Now is the time. Agre khaleli bua. Agre khaleli bua. Agre le batla president atlo responda. Jolly comrades. Speaker, somebody, the former Secretary General of the African National Congress, somebody who is the former Secretary General of the NUM, advocate, but lawyer by profession banna. Marilukile marager. Agar ata organization arna ke batho baba. Ke batho baba. Ke batho baba. Currently, hey, ukila seva bathong as the NEC NWC member of the ANC. Somebody okilenga seva also my comrade limamele ne la utla kirimare ene the former deputy president of the ANC, former deputy president of the country, currently the president of the African National Congress, president wa country ya rona, Ntate
Amandla. Forward with my younger forward. Forward with the ANC Women's League forward. Malibongwe. Comrades, thank you so much for such a wonderful occasion. I can promise you that many leaders in the ANC will envy me for spending such a wonderful afternoon with all of you. I'm sure their hearts are green with envy. Let me start off by greeting the leadership of the African National Congress Women's League, the SG, DSG, TG, and the other officials and members of the NWC of the ANC Women's League and NEC. And let me also greet those who are leading the effort to lead the ANC Young Women's Desk, because when this desk started, some of us had some doubts about it. We wondered what the ANC Women's League was doing. But today I can see the real fruits of the work that is being done by the Young Women's Desk. This is a fantastic moment. But let me start off by complimenting the ANC Women's League that more and more, the ANC Women's League, in my informed view, is becoming the best organized structure of our movement. You are continuing to be creative. You do things that are out of the box. The SG told me that, President, you are going to address young women in a picnic style type of occasion. This is it. We've never had something like this, to my memory, in the ANC. So well done to you. The creativity that one sees here is phenomenal. But let me come to the Young Women's Desk. You are demonstrating that you are ready for leadership. Absolutely ready. The things that you are doing are just amazing. I'm particularly impressed with the way that you arrange this program. that you brought together women who are not necessarily not part of your structure. You have broadened your reach. You are working with women completely outside of our movement even, and you are drawing them all together into your fold and allowing them to have a voice, to articulate their views, their concerns, all in aid of the empowerment of the women of our country. So I applaud you and I thank you, and I think you really rock. You really rock. Because we don't have a lot of time, as I've heard that you are having a gala dinner tonight. Now, I don't know whether I'm invited or not, but I've heard you have a gala dinner, so I'm not going to keep you away from your gala dinner. Let me thank, of course, the program directors, the most wonderful program directors who are fiery, who are articulate, who know what they're talking about. Thank you very much. Let me start off by thanking I think in the end there were about 14 young women who stood up here to speak and articulate on a number of issues. Now, they've articulated issues where they've made suggestions, where they've raised concerns, where they've also raised some criticism of what we are not doing well in government. And I want to say thank you for being so broad, but I also want to thank them for being so direct and so honest and being so pointed and sharp. We are very proud to have young women whose level of consciousness has risen to the superlative level where they are no longer afraid to talk about anything, where they are prepared to confront issues head on, where they are prepared to talk about very sensitive issues as well, and talk about them openly and articulately. And I'm also proud to have noticed that of all the 14 speakers, you are not only conscious of the issues, social issues, economic issues, but you're also conscious about the political issues. You are politically conscious. You remind me of the days when we were young, like 16, 17, 18, like many of you, when we were confronting the state of the apartheid, and we risked everything, you know, death, being jailed and being injured and so forth. The way you are articulating things is akin to what used to happen then. Let me start off with what my sister Nomsa Mazwai said. She works for the Soweto Theatre. Now, I've not been able to get an invitation. Nomsa, that's my complaint. I'll invite you the things that you are doing. But I was very, very impressed when you talked about walking. Walking is something that should come naturally to all of us. But of course, in our country today, walking for women is a real challenge. The women of our country are not free to walk wherever they want to. It becomes a major, major challenge. They risk being attacked, being raped, being killed. And the South Africa that we desire, that we should have, is a South Africa where women of our country can walk in the streets freely at any time, walk anywhere alone or with others. That is the South Africa that we want. But you also touch on a very important issue, Nomsa, about administration. That administration is not being done correctly, and it is a major problem to many of our people. But I liked it because you also came up with a solution. You said performance management and training must be the order of the day. It is true. It is true that the capability of our state resides in the hands and in the minds of our civil servants. Our civil servants are hard-working. The majority of them are hard-working. They are focused. But there are some who are not paying attention to putting our people first. The Paly Principle that we always talk about. That it should, and this is very much in line with our culture, we need to be putting people first. And then our own interests and so forth must come last. And we experience this quite a bit with some of our civil servants not really showing that dedication to serving our people with diligence. I like what Nomsa said. She said, tighten up on performance management, tighten up on training, set targets, and evaluate whether people are going to work to those targets. I'm pleased to tell you, Nomsa, that we are now wanting to reform our civil service. We've realized that our state has become weak over time, and we now need to tighten and strengthen the state so that the civil servants must serve our people with the even greater commitment, with greater dedication, because we pay them. Our taxes is what goes towards paying them, and when they serve us, we must know that indeed they are serving us with a smile on their face, with capability, knowing their work, but also knowing that we are evaluating them and we have set good targets for them. So I want to thank you because you are reinforcing the message that we are spreading amongst our civil servants, and as we move on with the reforms of making sure that South Africa does become a capable state, a state where a citizen will walk from their home and go to a government facility and know that they are going to be served well. They are going to be served with distinction. Just like when you walk, maybe you are going to a Vodacom shop, you are going to a Pick and Pay or whatever. You know that the people who are working there will serve you with dedication and distinction. That is precisely what we also want in our civil servants. So thank you very much, Nomsa. I applaud you and I thank you for reinforcing that message. Thank you so much. Kensani spoke so eloquently about the challenge that they had to confront as people in the creative industry against the apartheid system. And in many, many ways, the initiatives that people like Kensani got involved in started to demonstrate to all and sundry that indeed they can agitate against a system, but also use that form of agitation towards activation, and activate with a view of finding solutions. And I'm glad that she raised the issue of the creative economy, that it is this economy that must be properly recognized, because it is an economy that creates, that crafts solutions to the challenges that they face. And I've often said that we want our artists to be bold, to be creative, and to be forward-looking, so that even as society goes through challenges that they see, they must be able to craft solutions using their art form, using their creativity, and come up with solutions. And I've even given examples, and I've said, you know, we continue to confront the issue of HIV/AIDS in our country. Yes, we also continue to confront the issue of the LGBTIQA+ community. And many of our people still hold on to very archaic and very conservative notions. The creative industry is the one that must come up with plays, come up with songs, come up with poems, come up with prose, come up with opinion pieces, and attack these very backward and conservative notions that still exist in society. And it is when you come up with songs, we come up with plays like that, that we are able to send messages to the majority of our people, because the creative people in our country have access, have enormous access into the homes and to the households of our country. People listen to them. And some of them are even more popular than the President of the Republic. They are more well known. They are more loved. And therefore we want to utilize them. And so that's why I appreciated what Kensani had to say. Ikensani, look, no, Ikensani. Na takarendani. Dekadita karendani. So we need, yes, to support women in the creative industry to foster social cohesion. And Kensani spoke so eloquently. And yes, because she's more in the creative with her Stone Cherry initiatives, the things that she does, and that's fantastic. I appreciated that very much. Then there was my sister who spoke about a law firm with a focus on forensic investigations. You started speaking so quickly, I didn't catch your name, but I know what you were talking about. And you were saying you face challenges as women, and particularly because you are always relegated to being contract workers. You are brought in as an appendage of a big contract. You are not given the chance, and you would like our SOEs to develop spaces for women, and they should be more empowered so that they can work for audit committees and so forth. And you also articulated another point, which is a solution, which is why I really appreciated this engagement. The solution about the justice system needing to automate our system, because dockets go missing, and you've come up with a very, very novel idea, which should have been implemented years ago, that automate your documentation so that no document ever goes missing. Now this speaks to us becoming more and more of an e-government. It's been slow, the wheels have been moving too slowly for my liking, but we are going to have e-government where things will be automated, and so that we can get out of the Stone Age, as it were. Rendani Nemakamani speaks, she says, she speaks to me from president to president. Wow. President to president. But more importantly, she's President Honey. Now, I will never be a President Honey. I don't know, maybe I'll be president, I don't know what, but she's President Honey. And she was very eloquent, and she was saying artists are the equivalent of mathematicians, and saying that the education system has failed our people, but the syllabus must catch up with what is happening in the creative space. And she also said people in the creative sector need funding. They need to have a Department of Arts and Culture and Innovation, because innovation is what drives the creative industry, and I agree with that. And we also need to have the creative industry from foundation stage. I could not agree more with that. And we must find solutions, because she also says that art brings solutions. And I agree, her views more or less interface with those expressed by Kensani as well, that yes, art brings around about solutions, social cohesion, it consolidates that. And we want, and she says they want art to start at the foundation stage. I could not agree more with this, because I have seen how the energy and the creativity of young people is unleashed when they are given opportunities, when they are given the tools, if you like, of the trade at a young age, and they become very expressive. And doing it at foundation stage is so important, because in the main, children as they grow up, they speak through art and forms, and they express themselves even much more articulately through art. And I agree with Rendani that is the way to go. And you suggest that maybe the Department of Arts and Culture should also have an appendage which is innovation. We can think about that. Princess Sibanda, she's a graduate, but she's become a student again because she could not find joy in the world of work, because the world of work would not accept her. Now, I feel sad about that. I feel really sad because we are trying to spread the message with Minister Maite Nkwana Mashabane, who is the Minister of Women, of Youth and people with disabilities. We're trying to spread the message that our companies, including our SOEs, must open up opportunities and spaces for people with disabilities, embrace them, and craft clear positions for them. They don't need pity, they need opportunity. That's what they need. And they are very firm on this, and we need to be moving forward. And together with her, we will be giving more focus on this, because yes, we've tended to soft pedal on the empowerment of people with disabilities, and we are going to give it more and more attention. And I particularly liked what she said. She said, young people are tired of learnerships. They now want to be given real, meaningful jobs. And I could not agree more, because we need to make South Africa to be more inclusive, and particularly inclusive also for people who are part of the LGBTIQA plus community, who must also be given that opportunity to be economically empowered, to be respected, to be given their dignity, because they have an identity and they need to be given their full rights of citizenship that must be protected, and that must also be advanced. Now, Maiko spoke extensively about patriarchy. That patriarchy is still a problem. And she said we are topping the charts on the issue of violence against women and children. Now, this is an issue we must continue talking about. And I continue encouraging leaders, including leaders in government, that it is a matter that we must talk about and raise the level of consciousness amongst all of us, but especially men, about this issue of patriarchy. That we must move men away from this sense of masculinity that makes them feel that, you know, they own women. They are the all-powerful in society. So patriarchy must be abolished and done away with here in South Africa, and it must be in our lifetime. There should be no sense of dignity amongst us as men to feel that you have a right to a woman, and you have a control over a woman, and you are patriarchal. That must be done away with. And I agree with her that we must also have African solutions for African problems. And this talks to decolonization. And this is a conversation that, yes, we must have, and the ANC Women's League must lead this process, because this is an important matter and must decontaminate our minds as men, particularly on the issue of patriarchy. And so therefore, we must address this crisis of masculinity, as she said, and we must get to the nitty-gritty of it all. But more importantly, she also said that we must focus on the boy child. The boy child must be our focus, because once we can focus on the boy child and get the boy child to respect women, to respect and to know from a young age that they must respect women and protect women and be supportive of women, we will have possibly done half the job that ever needs to be done in society. Tomorrow, on International Women's Day, there is going to be an event in the Free State, which I'm very sorry that I'm going to miss. They're going to have, I think they said, 1,000 young boys who are going to be put through a process of raising their awareness about the issue of gender-based violence, talking to them about the importance of respecting young girls and women. I will miss the occasion, and I'm sorry about that. But we need to have more and more of these events, and the Women's League must organize these. You must organize them, because you must lead the charge. But similarly, we as men must also do the same, and I'd like us as men to take the initiative of focusing on the boy child. And I agree that women are the engine of society, and we must also address the health of women. And she then spoke extensively about, she wants me to partner all the women whose names appear here on the book and who also took an opportunity to speak. Ropiwa spoke about the need for counseling to be mandatory, because we are at war. And boys must know that no is no. When a woman says no, it must mean to him that it is a no, and must never go beyond that no. And she, Ropiwa, says that, and she spoke at length about her own experience, her deep experience, her personal experience, but also her experience in her work, in the difficult work that she does, where she actually sees that there is a deep need for counseling, and counseling must be made available on a mandatory basis. And she speaks my language when she says that we've got so many social workers who are unemployed today. Our country has trained many social workers. We have not employed them. But Minister Maiten Kwadamachabani and I are focusing on that. We're going to be focusing on how we can get the social workers, who are really the people who counsel the nation, who bind the wounds of the nation, to be properly deployed and to be there when people go through difficulties. And she also talks about mental care facilities are like jails. This is another area that we need to look at, because, as she correctly says, that is really depriving them of the dignity to live as people. So where we have mental care facilities that are like jails is actually a degradation of the rights of those people. Ropiwa, I heard you very clearly, and I heard the suggestions that you have made, and we will and should be able to take them forward. Yanko Banda, who is a civil engineer, talks about the need to empower the women, particularly in her industry, because they are being overlooked. They are given menial jobs. They are never put into senior positions, even when they are capable. and she focuses on the need for us to ensure that we break down the ceiling. And we need to break down the ceiling so that women do indeed come into their own and be able to show leadership. And she speaks about the SDGs, and she says that the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, will never be attained without the empowerment of women, and I could not agree more. And she uses a wonderful phrase. She says, women must take their place at the table and must not be on the menu. I could not agree more. And I agree with that. They must take their rightful place to be at the table, and I would even say to be at the head of the table as well. But then she speaks about the issue of infrastructure, the space that she works in. And you will have heard me, Yanko, talking about infrastructure, how infrastructure will continue to play an important role in the development of countries around the world, but more especially our own country. We want to develop infrastructure, and we see women playing a critical role. And I'm particularly proud to find that many more women are getting into the infrastructure space, and they're getting into construction, and that is to be applauded. And we do, yes, want engineering profession to be recognized. Now you say you need to be recognized in an office. Now in my office, we've got the Presidential Investment and Infrastructure Office. Now I want you to go and knock on that door and go and talk to Dr. Ramokhupa, Sputla Ramokhupa. He's the one who is heading this office, and he's the one who is going to be heading infrastructure built throughout our country. So you've got a friend in him, because already he's assembling a team, and it's largely a team that is populated by women who are going to lead the infrastructure charge that we are going to make. My sister, Palomino Jama, she speaks on behalf of the LGBTIQA plus community, and she mourns the fact that we did not mention anything about this community in the State of the Nation. And I promise you that if we did make a mistake of not mentioning it, it does not mean that it is not important to us. When I was Deputy President, I worked very, very closely with the community, and some of my very best friends are in this community, and you say you are tired of talk shops. So am I. I want real things to happen, and you say that we are here and you are here, and I support that completely. I think it was you or an earlier speaker who raised the issue of a number of countries on our continent where this is still a very difficult topic to talk about and to navigate. And I don't know whether it was you or an earlier one who said, when you spoke to my office, you were told that when this issue is raised, some of the leaders on the continent stand up and just go away. Yes, it is still a challenge on our continent. Now, what helped with us is that we had a very strong movement that represented the rights of people who are part of the LGBTIQA+. I keep teaching my comrades and colleagues to name it correctly. And my daughter helps me in this. We keep on saying that we do need to increase the level of consciousness. What we were lucky with in our own struggle is that the mass democratic movement had all manner of movements and organizations that formed a part of the struggle against apartheid. And as the time for the drafting of the Constitution came, this community was very strong in articulating its rights, and they came forward and say, our Constitution must be such that we must be able to say that people's sexual orientation must be recognized as a right. Now, this is still not the case in a number of countries on our continent, and it takes mobilization, it takes raising the level of consciousness, it takes talking about it, and I'm confident that the time will come when, yes, even our continent will recognize that the sexual orientation of people is something that needs to be embraced, that needs to be recognized, that needs to be protected, that needs to be upheld. So people who are in this community do have their own rights, and they need those rights to be recognized. And I recognize them, we recognize them as a government, we recognize them as a country, and where there is still prejudice and discrimination, it is against the Constitution of our country, and we will work to make sure that the rights of the people in the LGBTIQA+ community are fully recognized without any doubt. So Nkosazana Mazibuko, and we pass her condolences to her. She speaks about safety on school grounds, and she wants the Minister of Basic Education to focus on this issue of making sure that there is safety on school grounds. Yes, the Minister of Basic Education works with the Minister of Police, and they work at various levels, also at provincial level. We do want to ensure and enforce safety in the schools. We want to make sure that the violence that is taking place in our schools comes to an end. We cannot have an education system where students kill one another, where students go to school with knives, where all these horrible things are happening in our schools. But similarly, we cannot have teachers sleeping with students. We cannot have that. And that is why we are saying that we will come down hard on those types of teachers who do horrible things like that. She speaks about infrastructure in schools. This is still a major challenge for us throughout the country. You will know that the best infrastructure was given to the formerly white schools. And our schools in the townships, in the rural areas, were given the worst form of infrastructure. And they happen to be in the majority. We've got some 25,000 schools in our country, and we've been working every year to revamp infrastructure. And yes, there are still some schools that still have pit latrines, and I raise this as a major campaign issue, an initiative issue. It is being addressed, but it is still too slow for my liking, particularly after young learners died in pit latrines in various schools. So we will continue to improve infrastructure in our schools. My sister Sizagele Zwane speaks about the plight of sex workers. She says they face many challenges. They are stigmatized, they are discriminated against, the police are always after them, some of them are even killed or raped. Now this is a major concern for all of us. Yes, sex workers want sex work to be recognized, and there's a major debate in our country, the Law Commission came up with a report which we have said as government it now needs to be debated in the nation, so that people must talk. People have different views, as Sizagele herself said. There are some who say sex work must not be recognized. and others who say it must be recognized. So there is a legal issue there. But at the same time, I am very pleased with the way sex workers have organized themselves. They have organized themselves nationally into an organization. They participate in the South African National AIDS Council, and they take care that they should work on HIV/AIDS and reduce the incidence of HIV/AIDS. They also have rights as our fellow citizens. They have rights, and they should not be attacked, they should not be raped, they should not be killed. And this is the work that they do. And let us allow this debate to reach a point where we will find a solution. I'm convinced that we will find a solution. Sandra, my advocate, says that she is silenced by the boys' club. Now, I'll talk to her later so that she explains to me what she means by silence by the boys' club. Now, she also describes the case of the ANC Youth League member who went to court in ANC regalia and was also accompanied by a whole lot of other supporters. And she complains about this. It's a matter that obviously we will need to look at, because this to me does not come across right. It doesn't, so we will look at that. And she then says that there is no support for rape victims. And she also repeats what an earlier speaker said, that we need more social workers. And obviously from what she said, we need more training of our police, so that our police must be more sensitive when they deal with issues of gender-based violence. And when it comes to rape, the police must never be heard to be saying things like, forgive your perpetrator, feel sorry for your perpetrator, and so forth. We need more training, and we will embark on this training, because we need to be focusing on raising the level of sensitivity amongst our police, that they should not do all these things that will minimize the horrible impact of rape. You know, rape is almost like a terrible death sentence against anyone who is raped, because it is degrading, it stays with a person for life, and they will continue to feel it throughout their lives. And we therefore, as a society, need to take a dim view against anybody who perpetrates a rape against any South African woman. Musa Wenkosi says, black women are not recognized at postgraduate level. Young black people's intelligence is always questioned. And I know that because we are dealing with people who look at black excellence as something being of a lesser value. When they see black people succeeding, they think that, no, how did you get to be so good and so successful? And then they start raising a whole lot of questions. And I think we've seen this before. We've also seen it with particular individuals that we know who, as they succeeded, and because they are black, and I guess it becomes worse when they are women and they are young. People will always want to know, how did you get to this point that you should have a doctorate at age 23? How did it come about? Do you really get to do it yourself or not? So those prejudices still exist, and we need to continue working against them. And I would agree that, yes, we need to inculcate it in organic institutions like the University of Mpumalanga. But we also need to transform existing institutions. We should never leave them behind and say, no, they are so bad and they are so prejudiced. We need to work on them as well, so that they change their approach. Unomgqibelo Mkhize, who is a farmer like me, I love the space that you are in, where you are focusing on producing food, where you are focusing on co-ops and creating economic value out of the land of our country. And you say that you need support. The support must also be on technology, but you also need support to commercialize the produce that you have, but that commercialization must also be in line with the fourth industrial revolution. Now that is very refreshing, to find a farmer who says we now need to be interfacing with the fourth industrial revolution. So Mamkize, we want to give you the support, and our Department of Agriculture and Rural Development and Land Reform is going to be coming up with a massive project of supporting our farmers. We will be reaching out to the level where you are to support your co-ops, to support the work that you do. Now, the views that were expressed here are views that I will want to take forward also in the work that we do in government, because they are valuable views. And I'd like to thank the Young Women's Desk for having organized this and for having organized a nice picnic-style way of putting views and suggestions forward. And I must say that the proposals that have been put here are really, really forward-looking proposals that we would like to take forward. Let me immediately also applaud you, Young Women's Desk, for having recognized the 4 young women you brought here to the fore, and to give them the award Bavumile. I really appreciate that. Bavelile. I appreciate that, because you also make sure that we keep her in our memory. I was deeply, deeply hurt when she passed on. She was a woman of great talent. We were expecting a lot from her. I was personally, as her boss, expecting much, much, much from her. She was not only talented, but she was articulate. She was strong-headed. She had strong views on issues. And I always looked forward to hearing her views. And her views were always constructive. They were always insightful and foresightful. So I'm glad that you have established an award to recognize Uba Velile. I really, really appreciate that, and that you've given it to the first 4. May you grow stronger and stronger. My respect and recognition for the Young Women's Desk is growing and growing by the day. Continue to doing all the wonderful things that you are doing. I am immensely impressed by the way you are doing things, but also by the way you are tackling issues that are both developmental, issues that are current, political, but also intellectual. And I can see that there is a lot of intellectual talent within your ranks, and may you continue to grow, because yes, next time when we look for ministers, we shouldn't look too far. We will look amongst you all. Thank you very much. Future Minister.
There's the one from the creative would like to give to Ariyo Secretary.
Siyabulela kakhulu Mongameli wethu. We are far more richer as young women with the contributions that have fallen here today. There is a request, Comrade President. Now I'm just a convener of a province. President Hani has spoken. She has requested to make a contribution to the President. I will hand over the mic to her. She will only take 1 minute because we have come to the end of our program. I will also request Comrade Mangoba to come forward and render the vote of thanks immediately after President Hani has handed over. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. President, from one president to another, I would like to present you with this coin. It's a 5 rand coin. It's one of the most recent ones that have been designed by
by one of the most amazing designers that we have in the country. Neo Mahlangu, she's somewhere in the crowd. She's here. This is Neo. She designed this coin, and she would like to gift it to you.
I'd like to give you a gift.
So you're a designer, coin designer. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, comrades. Good afternoon, comrades. I heard as women we are ready to lead. Are we ready to lead? Are we ready as young women's desk, as young women of the ANC to lead? We don't look ready because the head of the state is standing on the podium, but I'm looking, all the young women are all over the show. Comrades, we have got values that we always need to maintain in the ANC. One of the value is the respect. When the president is here, when the head of the state is here, we need to stand up and sit down and listen, comrades. We have to listen. Comrade, President, besicela uxolo tata. Sicela uxolo singabantwana siyona, we still need guidance SG. Sicela uxolo tata. Sisixolele. Okay, comrades, mine is just easy to say thank you to the president. The president, we speak I'm not going to call you Mr. President, I'm going to call you Utata. Because Utata, except being a president, but you are a father to all of us. You are the father of the nation. You are the father of all of these women who are here. I've read one of the book, it says you train a woman, you train the nation. So now we are converting that and say you train the young women, you are training the nation. Okay, President, we thank you for committing yourself for fighting gender-based violence. Indeed, that is true because you have mobilized funds for doing that, you are implementing it. And also, President, we thank you for recognizing the Miss Universe to be an ambassador of gender-based violence. You are really taking gender-based violence serious. And also, one of the requests that is there for as young women, the chairperson of the National Youth Development Agency, we are lobbying you to be a young woman. Don't you agree with me, young women? We've been led by the chairperson who's a man. Don't you agree with me? Yes. Yes, we can't be deputizing all the time. We need to lead. We need to lead. Thank you, comrade. And also, Comrade President, if you can also strengthen your researchers to work on the cure for unemployment. The unemployment is increasing on a daily basis. So what is the cure? And guys, it's a challenge to all those who are doing masters. Cure for unemployment. Cure for unemployment. What can we do to cure the unemployment? And also, it doesn't need also only the government. It needs all of us. The unemployment. Unemployment is not going to government 8 to 4. Employment is anything that you can do with your hands. That can raise, that can bring butter and bread on top of the table. Comrades, without wasting time, thank you. To everybody, organizers of the program, to the leaders of the young women, all the provinces, Comrade Noiponi and everybody, and the Women's League, and save the best for the last, all the young women who are here. You are cream of the ANC. You are the future of the ANC. You must know that the ANC is here because of you. Remember, before you, there was Charlotte Maxeke, there was Winnie Mandela, there was Walter Sisulu, but now there's you. So, comrades, let us shape in the spear. Let's move forward. Let us work for the movement. We can see our movement is under attack. It's got challenges, but we need to make sure that we are working. kumele sisebenzeni maqabana isikhathi samakwayikwa liphelile sizohamba ngamateksi singena community by community, house by house, molo makhelwane. You take the next door person, you say come let's join the movement, but you make sure that now you're the role model to the next door so that they could join. Don't do funny things because the next door won't join you if you're doing funny things. And also the last one, comrades, Easters, all of us, let's go to church. There's only one person who's going to assist us on our challenges is God. Let's go to church and make sure that Good Friday, everyone is going to church. Where you took, you go and campaign. Next day you're going for local government. We must win all the municipalities in Gauteng. Malibongwe!
Ikamala makosikazi. Comrades, thank you very much. We've come to the end of the program. We let the president and the leadership of the ANC Women's League be escorted out of the stage. You have been a great crowd. Thank you very much, Mayanga. I'm sure that with you here, the communities will be richer. Malibongwe! Ikamala makosikazi. Ayaroka! Amakosikazi! Ayaroka! Amayanga!
Mara nikhulumi ngama-exhibitors nama-crafters. I-program president uziyahamba. Asinivanga ta.